I'm putting a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. Having begun the saving of the video and started my dinner, and I was realizing, oh yeah, that tetrad back in 2014, 2015, I wonder. And so I checked. And we do have a tetrad, sort of, in which the first total was on May 26, 2021. This one is the second. It's a partial, November 19th, 2021. Then we have May 16th, 2022. God help us if we have to go till next year. 2022, November 8th. So the tetrad, that was the first pattern of the latter days. And I was aware in 2014 of the pattern of Faust and Hinckley. If you watch the video I did on the comparison between lunar eclipses and deaths of Mormon prophets. So I was curious to test, okay, well, let's see if a prophet dies. Nope. Month before and after, nothing. So I thought, oh, all right. That's an anomaly, and I don't want to spend the time to try to study and figure it out. But then we come to the Feast of Tabernacles and another lunar eclipse. Well, okay. So does this mean two? Because of two lunar eclipses? Nothing. Comes and goes. So, okay, this is weird. I thought there was a pattern. What's going on? I guess it's not a pattern. I guess it's no big deal. And then, yeah, the third one comes on the Saturday morning of April General Conference. Passover. 2015. And I went, oh, it's a tetrad. And sure enough, after that conference, Perry, Packer, Scott, between the third and fourth, it established a new pattern. And I see this pattern with the 4. This is number 2 of the pattern. And so, damn. Why is this being dragged out? So it looks like you're off the hook, guys. But the symbol still remains. So we'll see if this corresponds with Monson, because Monson was a huge one. His death was on a sign in the heavens in Revelation 12. Stars shall fall from the tail of the dragon. Quadrantid meteor showers. And then it was followed with a very rare total or lunar eclipse. And so this one, May 26th, it was a lunar eclipse, but this one I thought might be a combination of in-betweens, like in 2014-15, but with this one, but having checked, there is the pattern of next year being dragged out. No! So, yeah. So disappointed. So I'll add this to the beginning, and then you'll get the meaning of the symbolism for it. And let's all hope and pray So maybe we get a second opportunity for an exodus next year. It's going to be bad. It's already bad, and it's already going to get bad. Because we were supposed to have miraculous, over and above miraculous snowpack. We're not getting it. So the drought of the parted waters and the dry land appearing is still going to be in effect for next year. But, oh dear God, we're going to suffer. So here we go. We'll find out what happens when it happens. Because until it happens, we don't know how to plug it into a pattern if there is one. So just so that you know, next year we've got the same May and November lunar eclipses. And I think only the November one is seen by the United States. The one in May is the eastern United States. So I don't think we're going to see it here in Utah. But Travis Wayne Goodsell. So we're nearing, within 2 hours, the 19 November 2021 Blood Moon Eve. It's going to happen tomorrow morning here in Utah time. 2 o'clock is a good time to be up and about. I'm going to go to bed early so I can wake up for my assassination by Jeffrey R. Holland. And so I thought I would go over with you the significance of this. Now, this is a rare lunar eclipse, so it's not your regular run-of-the-mill lunar eclipses, because it's the longest for this century. And it hasn't been a long one since the one that occurred, the news is saying 580 years ago, I think, or was it 680? I think 580. I have not checked to verify, because there was a previous big rare one that they were all claiming it was like 1400 or 2000, or I can't remember which, and I went and checked, and it was either sooner or later than the one that they were claiming, because the one they were claiming was not even close. I don't know why they were claiming that, but the news picked up on it and spread it all around. And so my channel was the only one that gave out the correct information of when the previous one had occurred, because I was able to fact check on my Stellarium. But yeah, I haven't done that for this. It's a little more complicated for lunar eclipses, because of the manner in which the system is programmed. You'd have to know when a lunar eclipse occurs and be able to zoom in to see that, oh yeah, okay, there it is. So like tomorrow morning around 2 o'clock, it should be noticeable. Now, depending on the weather, whether there's going to be clouds or not, it's unclear, but I'm able to watch it on my Stellarium, my Urim and Thummim. And if you're unfamiliar with the Book of Abraham, Abraham says he had the Urim and Thummim and was able to look at the stars. There's always something about what I say. And so the significance, anciently, is that in the scriptures we have the sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, stars fall from heaven for the latter days. Well, that's a little vague. We need star dates for each of these. And fortunately, there are star dates in Scripture. And I am exclusively giving them to you because that was my field of study. Ancient anthropology of the ancient Middle East. But the caseworker for the school just wanted me to graduate. And so it was biblical studies and philosophy of science with a minor in ancient languages, which none of that is accurate. It's anthropology of the ancient Middle East, scientific theory development, and classical languages of biblical Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. And so, anyway, I wasn't concerned about my bachelor's, dual bachelor's with a minor that was created for me. And anciently, all this comes from the Egyptians. And over time, people migrated out of Egypt and into Mesopotamia, where the Assyrians, old Assyrians, picked up on these traditions and beliefs and practices in government and religion and society. And they altered them according to their manner of language and according to the changing customs and such. And so for the Egyptians, it all originates with one story, that of Osiris, Set, and Horus. Now those are the Greek names. I've had people get offended because I use the Greek names. Dear God. But anyway, you have Horus, who, even though the story is translatable into multiple different levels, that's the best way to describe it, that it's a story about deities who are on earth. It's about government, it's about religion, it's about nature, it's about signs in the heavens, star dates. So there's multiple ways to use this. Cultural behavior. And if you're going to translate, I can refer you to the facsimile explanations that Joseph Smith uses, where he will say in facsimile 2 in several places, and also represents. So he did understand multiple translations for one single character. And he obviously did not finish. But it's clear to see that he was correct, having deciphered what Egyptologists have not. And if you're confused, I refer to, we'll call them facsimiles. They're Egyptian documents, whether carved or on papyrus, in which you'll have a scene, and the scene will have larger size characters, and then you'll see text that surrounds and is in between and all that. And Egyptologists only know how to translate the text that surrounds and is in between, but you'll not find the majority of the characters that are larger size. You'll find the crowns, and, for example, and the staves, and accessories. But the actual character of, say, Osiris, whom Joseph Smith calls Abraham, sitting on the throne, you won't find that picture. You may find a general one. You'll find the throne all by itself, but Osiris sitting on his throne, no, it's not in any sign list. Not Gardner, not Budge, not the other guys, because they don't think it's supposed to be translated. And as a result, they rely on the text that surrounds it to identify the various characters. And so, like Joseph Smith, Egyptologists will render a translation of the text, and then we'll do an explanation of the larger size characters. However, having deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, I was then able to walk right in and decipher the larger size hieroglyphic characters. And I prefer to call them petroglyphs because hiero is a Greek word for sacred. And so, yeah, they're sacred, but they're pictures. So I call them petroglyphs. Now, the reason why I call them petroglyphs, it's not because it's redundant, because glyph refers to pictures as well. There's logoglyphs and other glyphs, and so to distinguish, I use petroglyphs. And so with Horus, he's the latter-day type messianic hero of the story. And this is what gave birth to apocalyptic literature. And it's not just in our scriptures or written during the Roman period time, if you're familiar with that. It's been throughout. You know, the Mesopotamians, the Greeks, and the Romans all have apocalyptic literature. And it's a common theme for when there's corruption of government or a loss of a king, and it's time for the new king to take the throne, or assassination of the king, or rule by an enemy government. To embrace apocalyptic literature to give hope for a savior to rescue the people from the tyrannical rule. And so in our day and time, you'll notice that when there's a crisis event that occurs, people flock to the churches for solace and comfort. It's that same kind of concept. And so, yes, the Bible is apocalyptic literature too. That's why people flock to church, so that they can hear the scripture to hopefully give them hope for a fictional hero that they have incorrectly, because of Constantine, thought is real. And yet he's not real because he's Trinity. Oh, but the Mormon church is true because this not historical character created by Constantine is real. Not Trinity. That's not our Christ in Mormonism. It's Amen, the sun at noonday. And his son is Son Amen. And so he's the one on earth, and Father Amen's the one in heaven. So Osiris and then Horus on earth. So, Horus's eyes. The right eye of Horus is for government. It is corresponding to the sun of noonday. And the left eye is for religion. They had theocratic government back then. And that's for the moon. And so when the Apocalyptic literature talks about the sun shall be darkened. That's a wounded eye, a damaged or plucked out eye. And the left eye is for religion. The moon shall turn to blood. Plucked out. And so yes, Horus, when he begins the battle, loses his right eye. That is crucial. If you've watched my videos, you know how awesome and how I cannot explain it. Because the ancient Egyptians, and we're talking tens of thousands of years ago, knew and designed their calendars to have the one and only time in all of recorded history, as the Earth is recorded history with the star dates, not recorded as in man has found written records of such. The 21st of August 2017, that was their ancient religious New Year. And it happened to be Monson's birthday. And it happened to be the first year of the reign of King Zedekiah, king of Jerusalem, when Nephi is born to Lehi and Sarai. Or was her name Sarah? I think it was Sarai. And if you're like, well, yeah, but that was 600 BCE, Travis. It's code. It's not a literal history. Where have you been? And so that they're giving us the dates right there. Lehi has a dream. What does he see? The signs in the heavens. What are those signs in the heavens? Those are star dates. They come from Revelation. And so we have one solar eclipse from Revelation. It's in chapter 19, verses 11 and 17. It's 8 April 2024. That's the third day of darkness. Because Moses, with the Exodus, apocalyptic literature, 3 days of darkness. Book of Mormon. Oh, Samuel, name of God, talks about 3 days of darkness. And the sign of his birth. And also there's the Zenock, Xenos, and one other guy that is claimed to have talked about the 3 days of darkness and the crucifixion, which is the ascension aspect to the throne. And I've gone over that when I talked about Mary, who shows up at the tomb, wants to have sex. No, I'm celibate. I'm Trinity. No, he's talking about the marriage supper of the Lamb, which Nelson canceled. I did that video. And so these are for destructions when they're blinded. So Samson, yeah, he's blinded. Isaac, blinded. And so that's an important thing to watch for when you're going through your Old Testament, is to look for stories about blind people. Jesus, who does he heal? The blind. How does he heal them? Yep. Just like the creation story. Form the clay with moisture. Now, there's more to the Jesus stories than people understand as apocalyptic literature. And so we know that the great and abominable church is going to be destroyed. John in Revelation calls it Babylon the whore, as a woman. The bride of Christ is the church of Christ, and so the bride of Lucifer is the church of Lucifer. And so she's the whore, rather than the innocent, pure virgin of the Church of the Lamb. The marriage supper of the Lamb, Church of the Lamb. It's not just church, it's also about an actual woman. But we're not going to go into that again here. We're going to help you identify what's going on tomorrow morning with Scripture prophecy. So we have in section 1, verse 16, perish in Babylon, even Babylon the Great, which shall fall. Babylon already fell to the Persians a long time ago. This is code. Joseph Smith is referring to Revelation about Babylon the whore, which shall fall. And as a religion, how do we know that Babylon in this particular case is a religion? Well, those who don't give heed to the prophets and apostles shall be destroyed. Joseph puts cut off again. I don't know why in his history, when Nephi comes to him talking about Egyptian gold plates, please tell me you know it's Nephi and not Moroni. Because there's a reason. Because Jesus comes to the temple on Bountiful on 8 April 2024, gives his authority to Nephi, son of Nephi, and says, hey, where's the record of the name of God, which is Amen. So the sun at noonday comes down to Nephi, son of Nephi, and says, where's the record of the Son of God, which is named Amen, sun at noonday. There's more to the Book of Mormon than anybody wants to acknowledge, even Mormons. And so Nephi tells Joseph Smith, directly quoting Acts. Well, the passage in Acts is taken from the quote in Deuteronomy, which is claimed to be from the author Moses, who says there's going to be a man like me in the future. So 103 verse 16 in the Doctrine and Covenants, there shall be a Mormon who will be a man like Moses, who will rescue the Mormons from being in bondage, just like Moses. Exodus with the house of Israel. And here you have the Great and Abominable Church referring to those of the religion who will be destroyed because they're not listening to the man like Moses and the prophecies of the latter days, who have strayed from mine ordinances and have broken mine everlasting covenant. That's only in the temple. And it's only those who receive the ordinances and the everlasting covenant. So it's not Catholics or any Christian church. It's not Islam. It's not the Jews. Anybody create a light bulb in their head yet? And so, yeah, there's a specific religion that we're being warned about to avoid and stay away from, because it's gonna be destroyed, to symbolize or be symbolized by the moon turning to blood. And I've done the video in which I went over patterns that I discovered from the previous lunar eclipses where Mormon prophets have died. Wow, cool, huh? Yeah. And so no prophet has died within this pattern yet. We still have till tomorrow. If nothing happens, we already know that it symbolizes the destruction and fall of the Great and Abominable Church. And so when that happens, we do know the sign, though, that signifies that fall and destruction. And so the Book of Mormon is our tool for helping us understand what church we're supposed to be looking for. 1 Nephi chapter 13, it begins. The angel. Oh, apocalyptic literature. Apocalyptic literature, as we'll go over again for you. I redesigned my notes for tomorrow morning's interview. I'll try to make sure I remember to link you to it. It's another person's channel, so for those of you who would be interested, I'll link you to it. Unless it completely sucks and blows, and I don't want anybody to see how miserable the job I did. Or he edits so that my information is worthless. There we go. So apocalyptic literature, it's derived from ancient Egyptian story pattern of Osiris, Set, and Horus. It contains a messianic hero, sometimes a heroine. It contains some type of destruction or warning of destruction by angels or messengers. Ta-da! Book of Mormon. That's apocalyptic literature. Contains a woman, sex and marriage is involved. The Last Supper feast of the Lamb. The marriage supper, that's what I'm thinking of. The marriage feast of the Lamb. And then contains supernatural acts. It is, after all, just a story. Symbolic in its meaning at multiple levels of understanding. And so we have I probably should give you the other dates because we're going into the Great Abominable Church. Samson helps us out with the other two and confirms John the Revelator's third. Samson, as I've gone over with you, as I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, is the Sun King. The N at the end is a suffix determinative. For people, it's a king. For land, it's a kingdom. And Shemesh is for sun in Hebrew. So Sun King. And the Sun King, sun at noonday, has 3 deaths that are involved. The first one is the killing of a young lion. And there's a wedding feast and honey of the beehive. Isn't that interesting that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has at their headquarters the Salt Lake Temple, and people get sealed in there for time and all eternity, marriage. And then there's a lion house where you can have your wedding feast, and they have great honey that you can have with your meal, if you so choose. And it's also next to the beehive house. I find that fascinating. And then there's the 2 others. The second one is the death of his first wife and her father by fire. And that's on October 2023 when that one will occur. And the way I know this is because 21st of August 2017 happened in the constellation of Leo the Lion. The second one in 2023 in Virgo, the woman. And then April 2024 on the back of Pegasus, the white horse flying in heaven in Pisces. So Jesus meets with the group of followers, 2 fishes, 5 loaves. Yeah, those are birth dates. There's multiple birth dates because they're not actual birth dates. They're beginning time frames. And so, yes, the first one with the solar eclipse that Samson talks about is the same year that Revelation 12 gives us for the one birth of the Messianic hero in the latter days. And we know that it's not a real birth because, first of all, there's only a 7-year period of time, 2017, 2024, in order to accomplish everything that needs to be done. And if he dies, it's not a death, it's total solar eclipse. And thus Jesus did not die, total solar eclipse, where he ascends to take the throne on earth. And Constantine screwed all that interpretation up by calling it history instead of apocalyptic literature. In the marriage supper of the Lamb with Mary, which in Egyptian Mary means love. So Heavenly Father, Father Amen, tells John the Baptist at Jesus' birth, or baptism, which is in memorial of Osiris being murdered and thrown into the Nile River by Set. The death, resurrection of Christ. So they screwed it all up when you call them Trinity and ignore the original story. And so that one, I gave you the sign. On the horse. And Jupiter, which is born in Revelation 12, because that's the one planet that retrogrades in the womb for 9 months, 10 months technically, because the firstborn takes a little longer to stretch out the I'll let women tell you all about that. Alright, so Great and Abominable Church. Let's see. Came to pass, formation of great church, which is most abominable above all other churches. It slays the saints of God. So, has there been any prophet of a church where members die? And if you can't think of one, and if you're in denial of the one you know I'm thinking, oh dear God, and tortureth them, and bindeth them down, and yoketh them with a yoke of iron, and bringeth them down into captivity. Now this is descriptive of physical imprisonment, but there's also financial bondage that can apply here, being brought down into captivity. And so you're looking for a church that forces people to pay them in order to be in their religion. It's Great and Abominable Church. The devil is the founder. And so Lucifer, we go to Isaiah. Isaiah is also in the Book of Mormon. Isn't that coincidental? Isaiah says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning." Well, that's Venus. But Lucifer was only put in the Vulgate text. That's when it first appears. That's 400 CE. So why is it in the Book of Mormon if it's a literal history? Nobody else can tell you about this, just me. They'll tell you about other stuff, about the 1769 version of the King James Version of the Bible with the translation errors that are exactly in the Book of Mormon. But no, this, you got that exclusively from me. I am the source origin for that. And so, yes, clearly this is not a literal history. It's code. We're being told the identity of the great and abominable church. And it will have Lucifer as their founder, and Lucifer's sign is the falling star. And it's a secret sign. And for that we go to Helaman chapter 6. Verse 22, and it came to pass that this evil group, whom Satan is in charge of, had their secret signs and their secret words, so that they can distinguish those in their membership, which entered into the covenant. Remember 1:16? Covenants are violated. That whatsoever wickedness a member of this organization, this church, should do, their fellow members should let them go. Anybody familiar with Mark Shurtleff and his successor, who both were on trial? And the successor got off because it was a Mormon jury, and thus Shurtleff got away with it. Nor by those who did belong to this band, who had taken this covenant, and thus they might murder, plunder, steal, commit whoredoms, and all manner of wickedness, contrary to the laws of the United States of America and the Constitution, and the laws of the gospel that they even preach openly to others. This is a secret society putting up a front of a religion to fool people. This is what we're looking for. And so anybody who's a whistleblower in 24, yeah, well, they're going to get death threats from Holland. And Nelson, and murdered by Monson. And so I saw gold, silver, silk, scarlets, fine twined linen, and all manner of precious clothing. Do you know how much their suits cost? I know a woman who works at the store right across from Temple Square, or did. I don't know if she's still there, or if she finally got a guy and married off, or died of coronavirus, being murdered by the prophet because he's not following medical advice. But how much is the church worth? Oh, they don't want to tell us? But the whistleblower for Ensign Peak Advisors informed us that tithing alone is now over $200 billion. And in case you didn't know, the first presidency came out and said, we do this with everything. We follow the parable of the talents. And so they have dozens of different sources of revenue. And each and every single one of them has an LLC company, financial investment company, that does exactly what Ensign Peak Advisors does. And they do the same thing. Take out 10% to invest in that company. And they're all different companies, so that one company does not know more than what they are assigned. But the prophets all know, because they get reports from each and every single one of those groups. And so, like me, they don't necessarily watch all my videos, they assign certain YouTube employees or other spies to watch my videos and return and report. And so Oaks and Holland have already heard certain videos or the report of them and then gave their specific talks as they did. And you guys don't believe that that is the case. But that is exactly the case because the Book of Mormon tells us that is the case. I've already caught them in the act, and so I know what I'm talking about. And so, yeah, they're trillions of dollars. They are the richest corporation and organization over everything. Every entity, every individual, they are the richest. And that's why they don't want anybody to know about it. Because what are they supposed to do as a religion? They're supposed to elevate the poor and the needy, the sick and the afflicted out of poverty and ill health. And instead they're hoarding the money like the parable of the talents, rather than saving souls, which is what the parable of the talents was really talking about. So we're looking for that kind of a church. And I saw polygamy. Yay! Polygamy! Harlots. It's illegal. It's always been illegal. And so, yes, in order to deceive Mormons, they had to claim that Joseph Smith, oh yeah, he's practicing it too. He's the one in charge of it, but it's all in secret. Shh, don't tell. Especially don't tell your husband. Is anybody even checking these women who had children for the DNA of any of the Danites descendants? Because they checked for Joseph and couldn't find anybody with his DNA. I'm just curious if any of the Danite members can be traced to the children of the wife rather than her husband. Just saying. So yes, adultery and sex slavery and human sex slave trafficking, because Brigham Young took the women in polygamy, which is illegal, and transported them out of the states and out of the United States into Mexico territory. That is a crime, a serious one. Utah is in the news lately for their sex trafficking crisis. Wonder where they learned it from. And so, let's see. For the praise of the world or the praise of Trump, do they destroy the saints of God by purposely not following the medical professionals? Alrighty, and then, yeah, they destroy the scriptures of Joseph Smith. They took out plain and precious parts that Joseph Smith had, like when Joseph Smith said that we need to have Zion and New Jerusalem built in southern Illinois, and the 12 under Brigham Young are Judas. Yeah, there's no return to Missouri, in case that one guy is listening, who commented, was it earlier this morning? I think it was. If you're still listening, I didn't see a reply during the day today. Where are you? And so, this is how we know. And so, we're looking for a church with a headquarters temple that has the inverted pentagram of Lucifer on the keystone of over the doors. We're looking for a filthy rich church, neglecting the poor, causes death to its members, has been involved with polygamy, has secret combinations to commit all sorts of crimes, as their members are supposed to let them get away with the crimes. So the judicial system is rigged so the church can't be sued, etc., etc. And so, hey, we're at 5 o'clock. One more hour till official eve. And so, yeah, by the time this video gets up on the 2 channels, it will be that time. And so, that's the significance. And if you're paying attention to the news, all the crimes that are going on with the church, all the crimes that are going on with Mormons, that are just horrific. 10-year-old Mormon kids are murdering other 10-year-old Mormon kids. Dear God. How can anybody claim that they're good, righteous people? I mean, Laman and Lemuel. Oh, the people of Jerusalem are good. You judged them wrongly. We need our money back. Because Laban took it all. And, that's not a real history. It's code. That's what we're looking for here, because people cannot be freed from bondage until this great and abominable church is utterly destroyed. And in case you're wondering, Moses, after talking about the Mormon like Moses, and Joseph Smith calls him, goes on to talk about someone else. See, verse 20, it's some other prophet. And the translators purposely made him lowercase prophet versus the future prophet with his capital prophet. There were no capitals or lowercase in Paleo-Hebrew or even Hebrew. But the prophet, which shall presume to speak a word in my name, and dare try to translate Israel as let God prevail, or translate the passage which is supposed to refer to the capstone and cornerstone, and instead says that the cornerstone which the builders rejected became the head of the cornerstone. No, the head of the corner is the top of the pyramid, the capstone. Nelson. But he doesn't claim to be a translator. He never did. He was going by the footnotes. And they didn't even change them when I told them it needed to be changed. So, let's see. Which I have not commanded him to speak. We're not finished, are we? Or which shall speak in the name of other gods, like maybe a Jesus as a real God, a literal history God, even that prophet shall die. That's pretty harsh, isn't it? But that's the prophecy. That's also the symbol with the lunar eclipse, is a collapse of the religious leader, or the religion, or both. That's the symbol of it. So like for the sun, death of the king, death of the kingdom. Either one, or both. And if you're wondering, well, America hasn't fallen, are you sure? Are you sure? And what do you know? He has an idol god for people to worship too. has been murdering the citizens of his nation and still thinks he's the president and will come back if he is not stopped and locked up for his crimes. We know him by his fruits, and we know him by prophecy. Revelation chapter 13 goes into very great detail. 666, the number of the beasts. So yeah, we're pretty much done. I can go over section 85 that refers to Deuteronomy section 18 verse 20 about the false prophet dying, to show you that Joseph Smith is referring to that passage in multiple scriptures. It says in verse 8, "While that man who was called of God and appointed, that putteth forth his hand to steady the ark of God," which is supposed to be the prophet, that's his job, to steady the ark. Only he can touch it. That's the symbol. "Shall fall by the shaft of death." He shall die, just like Moses said of the future false prophet. Oh, yeah, that's also in the prophecies. False Christs, false prophets, who shall deceive the elect. So has the false prophet deceived the elect according to the covenant with filthy rich church that has the symbol of Lucifer on the keystone of their temple? Yes it is. Alrighty, so that's pretty much it. That's the significance. So if there is no actual physical event that takes place on earth, we do have the sign for it. There have been prophecies that have not happened. One is the Exodus, and we missed that opportunity. You guys weren't listening, and you missed it. And so now destruction's coming. Because Joel says, destruction cometh after tomorrow's eclipse. And we know the time frame because we already have the star dates. And so previous generations who all hoped that it would be their generation, no, it's ours. We get to be the lucky ones to die. It's a good date to die. And so vivid shaft of lightning. So that's why I'm using in the description below for the videos now is Dawkins' lightning strikes again. And there he goes using cut off from the church. No, it's destroyed from the church. Not. But notice the high priesthood is capitalized. Yeah, that's the big B brethren. Prophets. So, it's in here. You just have to search for it and then look to see which organization in these latter days right now matches. The time's running out. I hope you find it soon. I hope you know what to do once you find out which one it is, because you need to flee. You need to get the hell out of it. So, good luck. May the Swartz be with you.